It's that time of year again where everybody makes their playoff bracket predictions. I haven't done this until this year, and for the sake of seeing how wrong I can get it, why not try it? So without any more fancy talk, let's get right into my playoff predictions for 2023. So first off, for the round of 16, I'll go over who I think will win each race. At Darlington, Kyle Larson is finally going to do it. He's finally going to win the race that has eluded him, the track that's eluded him actually, for much of his entire career. He wins the Southern 500, but I could see Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin being very close to him, maybe stealing the victory from him as well. And also, you can't forget his teammate who won the race earlier this year, but I think Larson will get it. Going to Kansas, I will pick the winner who got his first career pole there, Christopher Bell. I know Bell only has one win this year, being at the Bristol Dirt Race, but with Toyota being very good at Kansas, this is the race where I think Christopher Bell could open up like he did last year in the playoffs and win his second race this season, trying to go on yet another run. And for my third winner at Bristol, I pick Kevin Harvick to pull it off. One of those poetic victories, much like Tony Stewart's 2016 Sonoma win or Jeff Gordon's 2015 Martinsville win, where everyone kind of knows that it's possibly his last one. I also pick him for this race because Ford was very good here along with Stewart-Haas. I think all four of the Stewart-Haas cars last year made it into the top 10 in qualifying. So now the people I think will make it in on points. I think this round favors Martin Truex Jr. really heavily. He's very good at Darlington, former Southern 500 winner. He's very good at Kansas. He swept there in 2017. He's in a Toyota and they're very good there, so I expect him to do well there as well. And for Bristol, Truex has always been a pretty good driver at Bristol. And I think the Toyota is also a pretty good short track program, so I could see him doing well there. Another driver that's going to do very well, I think, in the round of 16 is going to be Denny Hamlin. I could see him winning the Southern 500 this year again. I could see him sweeping Kansas this year. I could see him winning Bristol. All three of those races could be very easy wins for the 11 team. I think regardless if he wins any of them or not, he'll make it pretty easily into the round of 12. Next is the points leader coming in, William Byron. He could also win any of these races. Personally, I think his best shot is Darlington like he won earlier this year. But I think out of all four rounds, the first one actually favors him the least. But I think he'll do fine enough to pretty comfortably make it into the round of 12. Next, I have the 17 of Chris Buescher. This team has been on a run as of late. But the one thing I do worry about just a little bit with him is that they might have a little bit of the Kevin Harvick syndrome from last year. But they have a really good run coming up to the playoffs, and then right when they hit, disaster hits. Or they're just not to that level. Either way, I'm not going to discredit the fact that he won the Bristol Night Race last year. They have had a ton of momentum. He's 3 in a row on ovals. And he has the third best average finish in the entire field this year. So I think Buescher will move on. He'll move on also with his teammate Brad Keselowski. If not for a mechanical failure last year, I think Brad could have actually won the Bristol Night Race over his teammate. And Brad's also a Kansas winner. He's also a Southern 500 winner. So I think Brad, while he won't win and maybe be as competitive as what Buescher could be, he'll be right there behind him. Next will be Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has been kind of up and down a little bit in the back half of the season, but Kyle's still been quietly consistent. You don't really talk about him much, but he's right up there, and he's got a lot of playoff points stacked up here. Darlington might not be his best track, and Kansas used to not be his best track either, but Kyle Busch has gotten much better at Kansas. He's won twice there in the Cup Series. And at Bristol, I don't think I need to even explain to you why Kyle Busch is good at Bristol. Whilst he might be on the back half of it, I think he'll be a sneaky person just to get in on just pure consistency. Next is Tyler Reddick. This is where we start getting into my danger zone here of people that might not be able to make it and maybe can. Reddick is really inconsistent. They have a ton of speed, but they consistently mess it up. Whether it be a tire coming off, speeding penalty, mechanical failure, or just plain bad luck. This team cannot seem to ever harness the possibilities they have. Could that change in the playoffs? Absolutely. But the type of mistakes that Reddick and his team make aren't going to change on a flip of a switch because pressure's on. If anything, they might get worse. I still think he'll make it because I think Reddick is very good at Kansas. I think Reddick also has some good speed at Bristol. And overall, I think Reddick also performed well at Darlington this year until he got wrecked. Next is Joey Logano. Now, Joey has been kind of quiet for the majority of this year. It's not really been for a great reason, but Logano's still been good in a sense. He won the Spring Darlington race last year. He ran top 20 in the Spring Darlington race this year. And he's usually alright at Kansas. And he's usually alright at Bristol. The main problem is Penske has been bad this year. Penske in general has been bad the last 2 years, actually. I know Logano won the championship last year, and you're asking yourself, what do you mean they're bad? But Blaney has won once in 2 years. The 2-car hasn't won since 2022 in the Daytona 500. And the 21 hasn't won in over 6 years. In general, outside of Joey Logano, Penske's won once in almost 2 years. In total, their top 3 cars have also put together probably their worst seasons combined in 7 seasons. So I'll say Logano makes it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets eliminated. I also wouldn't be surprised if he goes out and wins a race, but I would not be surprised if Joey got eliminated this round. And I'll say the same exact thing for my 12th guy, Ryan Blaney. He will be the last one in, I think. Darlington is not a great track for him. Kansas is, it's more of a Ford problem at Kansas. And Bristol is a great track for Blaney until he gets wrecked. I think he could run good enough at Bristol to get himself in, but I don't have a ton of confidence in him really at the other 2 tracks. I think he gets it, but just barely. And of course, my 4 eliminations. You probably can conclude which ones they are. Top seeded one being Ross Chastain. I tried to put Chastain in the round of 12. My main problem with Ross is he has had terrible consistency over the last 10 races. Really over the last 4 months. Outside of that Nashville win where he showed immense speed, Ross only has 2 top 10 finishes, I believe. He had an average finish of 23rd at one point, excluding that win, and has just straight up on multiple occasions shown absolutely no speed. Could they turn it on? Yes, I think they could. What makes me doubt that is the fact that they didn't get Daniel Suarez in, and they had a dire situation with that for multiple weeks and couldn't find the speed. You can't run 21st and expect to make the next round of the playoffs. I'll put in Michael McDowell as another one who can't make it. I think McDowell will do better than what he did in 2021. I at least hope that. That year was a historically awful round for him. I think it's actually considered the worst playoff round in the bracket format's history. I think he'll actually be competitive. I think he could be up there. Heck, I could see him stealing a spot away from possibly one of the Penskes if one of them underperforms throughout the entire round. Generally, I just don't think he can make it. The next one is the Daytona 500 winner. If they get eliminated in the first round, this is not going to take away from this season at all. It will not. Ricky has done way better this year with the 47 team, on average, than most years this team has ever had. They're a top 15 average team consistently, which beforehand they were barely top 25. They're still top 15 and not a top 12 team, but they're building something. And this is good progress for them nonetheless. The last person to get eliminated is the 16th man in, Bubba Wallace. I thought Bubba was going to make it in regardless of what happened at Daytona. I thought out of all the people, he'd probably be the one that could win the get in, and or I thought that there would be a repeat winner, which there was. But I'm not confident really in him to make it past the round of 16. I know he won at Kansas. I think that's going to be his biggest moment to try and get into the round of 12. I think it's possible. I think it is. I think he actually might be the 13th guy to try and actually jump up in there. I think he could bump out his buddy Blaney if he could. The problem is this team has slowly grown to this moment. They barely were top 20 in 2021. They were a fringe competitor in 2022, and now they make it in 2023. I think they get eliminated in the first round this year, but for 2024, maybe they'll build to being a round of 12 team, maybe a round of 8 even. We'll have to see. But this year, I think this is their limit. So now we have the round of 12. For Texas, I pick William Byron to win. 24 team seems to always be pretty decent at Texas. I think they figured out this track and how it drives a little bit. And hopefully, if none of the stupid chaos from last year that happened, and probably one of the worst races I've ever watched, I think this will become a pretty easy lock-in day possibly for William Byron. The next winner, I think, is Brad Keselowski at Talladega. I think Brad gets it done. And this is his first win back, and it locks him in the round of 8. And my last winner at Charlotte is probably a Hendrick car. And I say this because I think William Byron would win this race, with his performance especially at Watkins Glen. But I also could very well see Kyle Larson pulling this off. Either way, I think with the consistency at Texas and Charlotte, regardless what happens at Talladega, I think Larson gets in pretty comfortably. I think also Kyle Busch gets in pretty good. Kyle's been pretty good at play races this year, and I think he could do well at Talladega. That car also won at Texas. And for the Charlotte Roval, I think Kyle Busch is pretty good there as well. I think he locks in pretty easily. I think Truex also gets in on points once more. I think he's going to accumulate a lot more playoff points, and that's going to carry him in regardless of what happens at Talladega. And I think he's good at the Roval, and I think he could be good at Texas. He led there until he blew a tire in 2022. I think Hamlin also gets in. You know how Denny could be at plate tracks. He could very well win Talladega and move into the round of 8, but I think he can run good there and generally place himself into this round. I think Christopher Bell will move into the round of 8. Remember, he won the Roval last year. I think he can dodge the wreck at Talladega possibly. And at Texas, I think he ran pretty decent there last year if I remember correctly. So I'll put him in the round of 8. And lastly, the final person in, Joey Logano. Again, I think he squeaks in just barely because of Talladega. I think Logano's going to do very well there. I don't know about the Roval, but I think he could also slip his way through Texas and get a good finish there as well. And that'll carry him. So that means there are 4 eliminations. Chris Buescher in the 17. Knowing how this fate works, it always seems to be when you run good at one plate track and you win, you get crashed in the next one. That's how it always seems to be. And I think he's probably going to get finally tangled up in someone's mess at Talladega and end up below the cut line going into the Roval. Now, I know Buescher had a really good top 10 streak going through all the road courses, but I think the Roval is probably his weakest road course simply because it's a very weird track. And I don't think Buescher can perform good enough there to recover the Talladega damage. Also, I feel like he's going to get caught in the trouble that happens at Texas for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I feel like that's going to happen. I think it's going to be close, but I think he will get eliminated. Kevin Harvick will also be eliminated. I think the magic will wear off after Bristol, and just SHR won't have enough speed to get him into the round of 8. I think Harvick will do all right at Talladega. I think he'll do okay at Texas. SHR always seems to struggle a mile and a half, though. And he did finish second in the Roval last year, but I can see him qualifying bad and just being stuck way in the back the entire race. SHR was awful at road courses this year. I know Briscoe got a top 10 at the Indy road course, but my mercy were they bad. I think Tyler Reddick gets eliminated. I think this is where the inconsistency is going to catch up to him regardless. It's very hard to get into the round of 8 and be wishy-washy. I know he won at Texas, and I argued that for Kyle Busch, but I feel like Reddick kind of fell into that race after all the disasters that happened. And lastly, Blaney. I could see him winning Dega. He's really good at Talladega sometimes. And I know he won the All-Star race at Texas. I feel like they're not going to have the ability to. Like, it's either going to be Logano or Blaney that make it in. And for whatever reason, I think Logano's just going to squeak in again. And those are my 4 eliminations. Now to the round of 8. Who makes it in? I think for Las Vegas, William Byron wins and gets himself in the round of 4. I think he claims victory there, but I could see him claiming victory at Homestead, where he won it in 2021, ran good there last year, or Martinsville, a place where he won it in 2022. If you notice, a lot of Byron's good tracks, places he's won at, are in these 3 races. He's won at all these tracks, and when he won there, he dominated the race. So I think he wins one of those races and gets himself in the Final 4. If not, runs good there across all 3 to get in the Final 4. I think on top of that, Kyle Larson runs extremely good there. He won at Homestead last year. He was the second best driver or on par with Byron at Las Vegas this year. And he won at Martinsville this year. Larson is the most recent winner in 2 of the 3 races in this round. So I think regardless of if he wins at one or not, I think he will have enough performance to get in. On top of that, at Las Vegas, he ran second to Byron most of the day, led to a 4-to-go restart, and then finished runner-up to him again. And now, the third man then, Martin Truex Jr. I think Truex just consistencies his way in, and I can see him winning at Martinsville, but I think overall, he'll come in and claim victory. And the last driver in, I think that's going to win at Martinsville, Denny Hamlin. Like, Hamlin is going to be consistent enough and win at Martinsville to get himself in, regardless of what occurs. So obviously the 4 drivers eliminated: Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, and Joey Logano. I just feel like they're not going to have the ability to consistency enough or to win to get into the final round. If I were to pick someone to swap out here, it'd be either Kyle Busch or even Christopher Bell again. So this is it. 2 Gibbs drivers and 2 Hendrick drivers. Head to head, who's going to win the championship? Now, if you remember, Hendrick was really good in this race earlier in the season at Phoenix. Did a very good job performing. The 2 dominated the race and finished 1-2 as Byron won in the late race restart. That is why I think Denny Hamlin is going to win the championship this year. Don't get me wrong. This is definitely not the first person I want to have win the championship. Not saying I hate him, but this is not bias. I just feel that with the way everything's going, this is somehow just going to be Denny's year. Like, Byron gets 7 wins, Larson makes it in and does very well throughout the entire chase. Hamlin kind of meanders his way in, maybe wins a Southern 500 and that's it. And Truex is probably the better teammate this year. And of course, he wins the championship. In a year where he's debating leaving Gibbs, apparently. And loses FedEx, possibly. Wins the title. It just all slots in kind of in this weird storyline arc, in my opinion. Out of all 4 of the drivers, though, in the Final Four, I think his toughest competition is going to come from the 2014. They were very good here in the spring. I know Larson had 250 laps, but he was the only person to keep up with him. And since then, they've been the only team to win at Hendrick since Larson won at Martinsville. I think Truex, while he's been good at Phoenix, I just don't think this is one of his best tracks, and I could see him not showing enough speed to be able to beat anybody. And Larson, I could very well see him beating Hamlin. I mean, it would be the ultimate irony if he could beat Hamlin. But again, the way the season's going, I feel like it's a Denny Hamlin championship. It's finally the year that it happens, and it's going to be something to see if it does occur. And for all the people who don't want it to happen, pray that it doesn't happen. For people who do, have fun with this one then. Yeah, so there's my predictions. There is my NASCAR playoffs bracket. Do you hate me? Do you love me? Do you think I was unfair? Tell me how much of an idiot I am in the comments. I don't care. I'll read it. I'll laugh if you insult me. I'll read it and agree with you if you agree with me. If you want, make your own in the comments. Be interesting to look at. We'll see who has the most championships. But other than that, hope people enjoyed. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you people in the future. Take care.